Hello, listeners. Today we are recording in December to have this content for you early 2023. Thank you for joining us here on the Detroitjcs podcast for Johnson Consulting Services, LLC. This is Alina J. Johnson, and I'm CIO and owner of the company. We are a woman-owned, SBA certified HubZone certified professional services company, headquartered here in the great city of Detroit, Michigan. And today, we bring you a very special guest for our college-bound students and families. Today is December 21st, and we are speaking with Ryan. Can you pronounce your last name for me?
Yeah, Fewins-Bliss. The hyphen always gets you.
Okay. And we're talking to Ryan Fewins-Bliss. He is the executive director of MCAN, the Michigan College Access Network. He ensures that MCAN is able to meet its mission by having strategies, resources, and support necessary to reach Michigan's 60 by 30 goals. That is to have all adult Michiganians 60% or over by 2030 to have a certificate or college degree. So this includes leading policy work, fund development, partnerships, and efforts to achieve the organization's strategic plan. Now, Ryan has worked in education and nonprofit field for more than 15 years, serving in K through 12, higher ed, and community organizations. Welcome. Would you prefer me to call you Ryan or Mr. Fewins-Bliss?
Never Mr. Fewins-Bliss. Ryan, please.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us today, Ryan, especially during this very hectic holiday week.
Happy to do so. Nothing gives me greater holiday spirit than talking about college access and success.
That's right. That's right. That's what we're about. So let's begin with an icebreaker. Are you a Michigander or a Michiganian?
A Michigander. And I was going to say, when you said Michiganian as part of our 60 by 30 goal, I was going to come in and say it's Michigander.
I threw that in there just for you. I'm a Michigander too. Just joking. Anyway. All right. So let me begin with a confession. I have a confession. I'm a huge MCAN fan. So I'm a follower and a subscriber. For years, I follow you closely on Instagram and Twitter. And I had asked about the conference way back in September because I knew it was coming. I was looking so forward to it, and I got sidetracked by some good and some bad news. But I won't get into the bad news, but I will share with you the good news because it informs our conversation tonight. So recently, our company was awarded a contract with the Detroit Public Schools Community District. So we'll be providing 4 professional services under parent enrichment, including financial literacy, career readiness, college readiness, and scholarships and grants. So that's a good lead in to what we're talking about today, scholarships.
That's huge news. Congratulations.
Thank you. But let me backtrack a bit. In my fangirl phase earlier, I mentioned the conference. So do you mind telling our listeners about the MCAN conferences first? The MCAN offers educational conferences and maybe about this year's topic.
Yeah, so each year we do a conference, and we've been growing over the years. We typically pre-pandemic had about 600, 650 people attend. Since the pandemic, we've been sort of slowly coming back. We obviously canceled the 2020 conference, but we came roaring back in 2021 with almost 500. This year we had over 500. Yeah, hoping that we can get back to pre-pandemic numbers in the future. But what
where are your highs? Just out of curiosity, how big Did it get?
At 2019 was our largest year, between 600 and 650 registrants.
Woo,
We're
okay.
running out of space.
I was gonna say, where you need a stadium?
We're limited in where we can actually hold it now, which is, you know, a
Right.
good problem to have, but a problem nonetheless.
Yeah.
What all those people mean, though, is that we have really rich content sessions that are peer led. We're
Yeah.
able to leverage bigger names to come to the conference. So this year we had the CEO of ACT and the CEO
Yes.
of the College Board
Oh
on
my
the same
gosh, I know.
stage
I saw it.
talking about testing, something we were really proud to be able to bring those folks to Michigan for. So we're just able
Yeah,
to leverage more and better content when we have more people there.
that's true.
So
That's
this
true.
year was our first year moving out of the Lansing area since our first conference.
Okay.
So we've been in Lansing for over a decade. We moved
Okay.
up to Mount Pleasant and we were at Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort.
Right,
And
right.
time, it was a great spread. They treated us really well. It was a lot of fun. We had
Yeah.
some really strong keynote speakers, one from LA who's working on homelessness, one who
Right. I saw
talked
that.
about, yeah, it was a phenomenal program. One
Awesome.
that talked about testing, like we talked about, and one that talked about sort of taking care of yourself and mental health. We know that students are facing that, but also the professionals that help students are also having their own trauma plus secondhand trauma from their students. So we wanted
Hmm.
to make sure to carve out some time to make sure folks are thinking about that and taking care of themselves. So
That's true. The
phenomenal
whole holistic
experience.
view of
Yeah,
health.
absolutely. Making sure people are healthy. We want them to go to college, but they got to be healthy before they're able to do that.
That is true. That is true. Well, uh, Lau, about the Michigan Achievement Scholarship. I know you recently had a webinar Wednesday, November 22nd, I think it was, but what are some key points that you like our listeners to know? With your permission, I can provide our listeners with the FAQs from the webinar for key information, but if you could tell us about this scholarship and what makes it unique.
All right, listeners, this is huge. This is the largest infusion of cash into state-based financial aid, I think, in Michigan history, certainly since I've been working in this field.
That's so
Uh,
cool.
it's $250 million allocated just in this year's budget to get the scholarship off its feet. Each year for the next 5 years, it calls for an additional 50 million to be put into the pot by the legislature, culminating with about $560 million, $500 million in
Wow.
state-based financial aid by the end of 5 years. So just like a huge darn deal.
Yeah.
What's really great about it is it's incredibly flexible and it's a large net. It catches a lot of students. So this starts with the class of 2023. Nobody else is eligible until the
Mhm.
class of 2023, high school class of 2023.
Right.
And students can take it to a public university. They can take it to a private college. They can take it to a community college. They can take it to a tribal college.
Right. And
Really
that makes it
flexible in where
different.
you go. Yeah, every
Yeah.
other grant that we have at the state level sort of sends you in a particular direction toward a particular type of institution. This one, you get to pick the best match and fit for you as a student, and you can
Yes.
take the money there. The dollar amount differs depending on the institution type, but every institution type has a dollar allocated to it.
Right.
So
So
that's
families
huge.
can be very flexible in their choices
Yeah, if
using
you're
this
on your way to
scholarship.
Michigan State, there's money for you. If you're on your way to Olivet College, there's money for you. If you're
Right.
going to Lansing Community College, there's money for you.
Right.
Saginaw
It's like
Joshua
that
Tribal
Oprah.
College, money for
You
you.
get it. You get it.
Yes,
You get it. You get it. It's
yes.
everywhere. Right. It's
There is
community college
a
level on up.
yeah, I mean, that's what's so exciting about it. There is a income threshold, and when I say that, this is where things get less easy to understand. The income threshold comes from the FAFSA. It's not
Right.
an actual amount of money that a family makes, which would be really clear and easy to understand.
Right.
But
Like
students
that
have,
non-clarifying uh what is it, expected family contribution, just a
yes.
total mess.
Yeah,
We'll get into that
students
later,
and
folks.
families don't know what an EFC is on their
Yeah.
FAFSA, and
Well,
it's
now it's called the Student Aid Index, which
well, it
really,
will be next year, right? Which
really
even
is what it should
complicates
have
it.
been altogether, because it doesn't mean what your family is actually contributing. So
Right. So in its current form and for the next year, students have to have an EFC, expected family contribution, on their FAFSA of $25,000 or below. That's actually a pretty high threshold. We
Yeah.
anticipate that 8 out of 10 new college students who enroll in Michigan will be
Mhm.
eligible for this.
Okay.
So that's really great. Most people
Yes.
will be eligible. So I want to make sure your listeners understand that. Don't assume you're not eligible. Fill out the darn
Apply.
FAFSA
That's
and
what I would
find
say.
out you're going to be
Apply
eligible.
and let them tell you no versus not applying.
There is a higher likelihood that you're going to be told yes than there is no,
Yes.
and that's good odds. You can use the scholarship for up to 5 years at a 4-year college and up to 3 years at a community college. You can also use it for 3 years at a community college, transfer to a 4-year institution, and have an additional 2 years of eligibility. So
Look at
lots
that.
of flexibility. If you
Very
want a certificate, you can get a certificate. If you want an associate's, it'll pay for that. If you
mhm.
want a bachelor's, it'll pay for that. So it won't pay the entirety of those things, but it's a good chunk of cash out of the cost. What I expect to happen is that students and families will fill out the FAFSA thinking I need to get this Michigan Achievement Scholarship, and we'll end up finding that they're actually eligible for other aid. They're full
Wow.
or partial Pell eligible. There's
Yeah.
institutional aid. Also, if you do end up wanting to take student loans, the FAFSA is the pathway for that too. So it's worth filling out the FAFSA because you're going to get a lot of information. And what
Right.
I hope
FAFSA
students
being
and
the
families,
basis.
right,
Like the
what I
free
hope students
application
and
for
families
veteran
do with that
student aid.
information is make a decision to go to college. So this is going to
Exactly.
be great for the students and families that were already planning to go next year. And I want them to get the support, and I'm super supportive of that. But where I
Mhm.
really want people to listen are the folks who have said, college is too expensive, it's not for me. We
Right.
have to reframe that conversation now.
Yeah.
Those students are most likely eligible for the Michigan Achievement Scholarship.
Right.
Fill out the FAFSA before you rule yourself out and find out if this is actually something that will help get you there. I want to
Right.
see new students, new families that thought that they couldn't afford it to fill out the FAFSA and find out they actually can afford it.
Right. We want to change families' mindset, like you said, to just make the decision to go and apply.
Yeah, it's great to support the current students, but at
Mhm.
MCAN, we're about college access, increasing college access and
Right.
success. So
For new students.
we've
Right.
got to get new folks who wouldn't necessarily see themselves in college to go there.
Right. That ties into my next question. So now that we've covered the conferences and the scholarship a little bit, I'd like us to discuss first generation college students. So there didn't seem to be one single good definition out there, but I like how MCAN referenced the students from the mission statement and also the information from this year's conference, which focused on the 60 by 30 initiative. So, MCAN's mission is to increase college readiness, participation, and completion in Michigan, particularly among low income, first generation, and students of color that are college bound. So, I like that. From the conference, it was said that, and these are just some of the excerpts from the different workshops. Um, Low income parents of first gen college students often or sometimes lack knowledge and firsthand experience necessary to help children participate in higher education. And the COVID-19 pandemic greatly exacerbated summer melt for first generation low income students and or students of color. So I wonder, what is MCAN doing specifically for first gen college students and their families? And what is one thing or several things that you wish these students or families knew from your experience? So, what key information outside of completing the FAFSA and applying to things like this Michigan Achievement Scholarship on time, what information do you see Michiganders as needing to be more knowledgeable about to access MCAN resources and this scholarship or other scholarships that you'd like to discuss today?
Well, that's a great question. So, first generation college going students are those whose parents did not get a certificate or a degree, which is a huge amount of students in
Right.
Michigan. And if you haven't had parents go to college or at least finish college, it's harder for those students to understand the process. When do I apply? How
Right.
does the SAT factor into this? When do I look for scholarships?
Mhm.
When do I have to pay my deposit? When do I show up on campus? Do I have to live there or not?
There's
What
a
the heck is
generation gap for sure, because college is the process is different now than maybe it was 20 years ago or
for sure?
20 years
For
before
sure.
that.
Yeah, and it's not intuitive.
Right.
And there's a language barrier. So, what is a registrar or a bursar? The only
Exactly.
places practically in our country that use those terms anymore are colleges. And so,
Exactly.
to show up to college and be like told to go to the registrar's office, like,
Right.
what the heck is that?
I literally just did a consultation with a family on completing college. And I said, yeah, you go to the bursar's office and get your transcript. And they were like, the what?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the knowledge gap is real, but what, like I said, what is one key or several key things that you want them to know
Well,
to help
number one,
them?
that college is for them. They
Yeah,
have heard messages institutionally from adults, from peers that college isn't for them, college isn't important, there's no return on investment, and that is absolutely
gotcha.
fact-based wrong. So while college certainly has been built on the bricks of white and upper class students and still has those ghosts hanging around the ivy walls, they absolutely have a place in college. And we won't survive as a society. We won't hit 60 by 30. We won't be able to keep
Yeah.
an educated populace in our state if these students in these priority populations don't go, including first gen students. So number one, get rid of all of the bad advice that adults have given you under the auspices of helping you.
Right.
Hear
And
this loud and
go.
clear. You can get to college, you can pay for college. College is important. You will make more money over your lifetime uh,
Yeah.
if you go to college.
Get rid
So,
of those gaps, the education gap, the wealth gap, the unemployment gap.
yeah, we
It
work
does
in a
help.
lot of communities across the state, and we hear a lot of, frankly, people who look like me, white men telling other people not to send their kids to college.
Wow.
And, when you ask them where their kids are going, it's MSU and U of M and Notre Dame and Northwestern,
Right.
which is gross and, institutional racism at its worst.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure we're dispelling those myths for students. Don't listen to that bad advice. You can go to college. There's a pathway for you. What
Great.
we want students to think about, especially in these priority populations, is what is the right match and fit for them? What is it they want to go into? What
Right.
institutions offer those programs? Do you need a certificate or do you need a master's degree?
Right.
That
And
will
that
help
ties
them choose
in,
their pathway.
right. That ties into the next question, which is there are 4 60 by 30 initiatives. There's Michigan Reconnect, Skills to Work, Futures for Frontliners, and Going Pro. So, Ryan, will there be more initiatives added, or is there an area of education, maybe CTE, career and technical education, EMC, early middle college, or otherwise that's lacking that needs to be addressed? And also, second question, what happens after 2030? Are there new Michigan initiatives that Michiganders can expect after 2030? Because we only have 8 years to reach that goal.
Yeah, I mean, to answer your first question, everything is lacking. That's not to say there isn't an infrastructure for those things you just described, but there isn't enough money, there isn't enough people, there aren't enough school counselors. They're just, we're not,
Resources.
yeah, we're not operating from a position of abundance right now. So good things are happening, but we could always reinvest in those things.
Yeah.
CTE, AP, IB, dual enrollment, all those early credit taking opportunities are really important. As is doing college advising. And once students get onto a college campus, doing college coaching to make sure that they complete the certificate or degree. One of the worst things we can do is pipeline students, especially low income students, into higher ed and then
Yeah.
have them stop out and they end up carrying debt, but they don't carry the credential that will earn them the money
Exactly.
to pay off that debt. So we're actually
Exactly.
causing those communities harm, which is,
But
what
that's
we are
Michigan
espousing not
Reconnect,
to do.
right?
What's that?
Michigan Reconnect.
Well, Michigan Reconnect helps with that for students
Yeah.
over 25.
Yeah.
But in general, we want to make sure that folks don't leave school with debt and no certificate or degree. It's a really
Exactly.
bad place to be. And there's about a quarter of Michiganders who are in that position. About
Exactly.
25% of all of the residents of the state of
Yeah.
Michigan, aged 25 to 64, are carrying some debt but don't have that
Don't have the
certificate.
credential, the degree or professional certificate or even trade certificate. So
Yeah, so
great
it
issue.
hinders them economically for sure. It hinders our communities, but it also sort of reinforces that awful message that they probably thought coming into the institution, that this isn't for me, that I can't do this,
Right.
I'm not worth it. And that's
Right.
that's an awful place. We need to
Right.
make sure that we're sending the message, especially to low income students, first gen college going students, and students of color, that they are worth it. They're our future. We've got to make sure that they're as educated as, my kids are going to be, who have
Right.
less, fewer barriers in place. We've got to knock those barriers down for everyone.
Right. The
Otherwise, we're
barriers
going to
and
have
yes.
we're
Right.
going to have like a semi-segregated society like we still have today. We've
Mhm.
got to break down these barriers. So
Right.
your second question was about what else is on the
The
way.
horizon.
Maybe that
Yeah.
was part of your first question. But Michigan Achievement Scholarship is actually part of the suite of the 60 by 30 initiatives. The
Okay.
governor signed that because this was her big goal, and she was incredibly supportive of that. There's also some things at 60 by 30. There's an office within the government now called 60 by 30.
Right.
There's a lot that's going on in that office that are sort of behind the scenes. So there are some Michigan Reconnect navigators in communities across the state who are helping adults process their, paperwork and find the right place for them to go so that they can use those Reconnect dollars. There's student success grants that they've been giving to institutions to increase their completion rate for students. They're about to launch some student facing programming for students to be able to help peers go to college. So there's some things that aren't as big and splashy as the scholarship programs that are also
Right.
doing some infrastructure building on the ground level
Mhm.
and investment into local communities. So I do think we'll see more of that. What I'm hoping to hear from Governor Whitmer in her
Mhm.
State of the State in the next couple of weeks is,
Yeah.
I set out 60 by 30 in my first year. I've got another term. We've got 4 more years where we need to press hard on this. We're going to double down on this initiative. We're going to double down on this goal. That is what I'm hoping to hear. That's what I'm hinting to the governor's office that they should say, and sort of
Yeah,
in,
we're
the
definitely
next
hoping
four
for that.
years. Yeah, so and I think it's likely. I don't think she's going to back down from this. So
Yeah.
I think we'll have some new ideas and new investments over the next 4 years. That leads us pretty darn close to 2030.
Yeah.
If we hit our goal, it'll be a celebration, but I'll tell you the dirty secret of 60 by 30.
Mhm.
60% of Michigan residents having a certificate or degree by the year 2030 isn't enough for our economy. The
Right.
current economy right now is demanding 70. We believe it's closer to 75 or 80% of
Ooh.
Michigan residents to have that certificate or degree.
Wow, you hear
We'll
that,
celebrate
listeners?
the big goal because it means
Right.
we've worked really hard and we've grown a ton, but it
Right.
won't be enough. So I'm hoping whoever takes the governor's seat next will
Yeah.
double down again and say our new goal is whatever by whatever.
Exactly.
Because
We
really
gotta
the
keep
ultimate point
increasing
of a
it. We
goal is
can't.
to like rally the attention,
Right.
rally the movement, and point towards something so we're all on the same page. So
Right. We can't
again,
sit on our laurels and be
no,
happy
no, we
with
can't rest. And
60 by 30.
the downfall is if we don't hit these goals, what happens is we will end up importing talent from other states and other countries like
Right.
Canada, which is right across the water
That's
from us.
right. Look, I can see it from my
And
house.
while I certainly welcome those folks to come to Michigan and would love them to come to Michigan,
Yeah,
ultimately we want to make sure there is a place for Michigan children to go to school, to graduate high school, go to college, and have a job in Michigan.
right
We
here.
can't just import our talent. So we've got, if we're not serving our own students and we're importing folks, we've got a broken system. And that's
It's
what's
true.
happening now. So we got
Yeah,
to keep reaching and reaching to make sure we're able to fulfill the goals of the community.
exactly. Can you tell me or tell us about more about the success grants to institutions? Is that specific grants to all colleges and universities? Is this community college, 4 year, public, private, or all of the above?
In its first form, it was colleges, community colleges that were eligible for success grants. And ultimately, the success grants were to help Reconnect and Futures for Frontliners students be successful.
Gotcha.
Again, the last thing we want to do is add a new scholarship, give students money, and then they fail out of school or drop out of school rather.
Right.
That's just not good. It's not good use of state money. It's not a good way to treat our citizens. So the grants were to help those community colleges better serve those students. And they did that in a variety of ways, from adding staff to be able to support those students, to changing institutional policies to get rid of things like remedial or developmental education, because students don't tend to get out of those programs and certainly don't graduate in very large numbers who touch foot into a remedial program. So to try to change some day-to-day supports, but also some institutional policies so that students are better able to succeed. And while that was focused mostly on reconnectors, we really pushed those institutions to make those policies for all students.
Yeah.
To just find ways to make that work for reconnectors and then institutionalize those systems and structures so that all students have a better likelihood of completing.
And just so our listeners know, Michigan Reconnect is for adult students 25 and older who have had some college, but have not completed a degree or certificate program.
Or have had no college. Students
Or
have
no college.
never
Okay.
experienced it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So again, we have to increase this goal at some point. But like you said, we're all waiting for the governor's leadership on this to hear more about how we can help Michiganders grab those certificates and degrees and be successful in this economy. So,
well, I'll tell you, it's not my job to carry water for the governor, but I can tell you what is happening on the ground. Since Michigan Achievement Scholarship was signed into law back a couple of months ago, the governor's office has been leading a cross-sector, cross-divisional team that MCAN has been sitting on to implement Michigan Achievement Scholarship to make sure we're maximizing its potential.
Right.
So
you don't want the money to just sit there. You want to use it.
It's not a good use of taxpayer dollars. So I really love to see that leadership to say, like, I believe in this. I set the goal. I'm signing the bill to provide more funding, and now I'm actually tasking my staff to help make this work.
Right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, for meeting with us this busiest of weeks. We want to wish you a happy holiday season, and we'd love to advocate and join MCAN as a small business partner for any upcoming initiatives. As we're already aligned with the 60 by 30 initiative. The initiative, again, was created to ensure all adult Michiganders, 60% or more, obtain a college degree or professional or trade certificate by the year 2030. All right, so we are aligned again with the new financial literacy law. Recently in this quarter, Johnson Consulting Services completed a podcast episode with former Michigan Rep Diana Farrington of District 30, as she was the sponsor or the writer of the bill requiring all high school students in the state to complete a 1/2 credit hour course in financial literacy for high school graduation. So that would be House Bill 5190. We're also aligned with Michigan's top 10 strategic education plan, the state law MCL 380.1165, which is the financial education programs. So we're in this together, Ryan.
That's great, because we don't serve students directly. We need to be in alignment with folks who do serve students and families.
Exactly. So if you have not already, please listen in to the podcast. I'll send you a link after the show. And I'd love to have you on the show again to update us on this or other initiatives or programs that Michigan college-bound students and families should know about. So our goal here at Johnson Consulting Services is to be a one-stop shop of free resources for college-bound students and their families to reduce and eliminate student and family debt in terms of completing an education. So would that be okay to have you back on?
We will be on whenever you invite us. And in the meantime, your listeners can go to www.micollegeaccess.org and they can see all of our resources.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. For you, our listeners, let me recap and once again repeat another website, www.miachievement.org. And there you'll find information on MCAN, the Michigan Achievement Scholarship, and the 60 by 30 initiative. So a hearty thank you to our listeners for tuning in to the Detroitjcs podcast for Johnson Consulting Services. We are a professional services company located here in the great city of Detroit, Michigan. We specialize in financial literacy. We work to empower you to complete your education as we bring you free resources like this. Again, we're aligned and committed to the 60 by 30 initiative, and there is more to come on this podcast. So please be sure to tap in, subscribe, and comment. We'd love to hear from our listeners as we seek out and create new content and news you can use. So you'll find us online everywhere but Facebook and Meta. We're Detroitjcs. Be sure to tune in to our YouTube channel to view any presentations from this audio podcast. Again, this is Alina J. Johnson, CIO and owner of Johnson Consulting Services. We have a passion for you, and we're looking forward to working with Detroit Public Schools and MCAN. And thank you for listening.